Okay, if you've got $1,000 a month extra and you're wondering what is the highest and best use of that money, or maybe in normal speak, what you should do every month with that money, this video is for you. So let's jump in. Plenty of popular financial people will talk about basically absolutes, like you can only do this or this or this, assuming you've met certain criteria. So, what does that mean? So, you can only pay off debt if you have debt. You better not go inside a restaurant. You better not build your emergency fund unless maybe you've got $1,000 emergency fund or something like that. Or you certainly better not invest unless you are completely out of debt. I think that is a load of garbage. So here's what we're going to talk about today: is what if you have $1,000 and what you should do with that money. So I'm certainly a big fan of, I like plenty of these financial people. I think they have a lot of good things to say. I think through the lens of automation, it changes the game. You don't have to any longer just go, hey, I'm living in poverty and now I've got, $50 a month to contribute to my financial goals. Therefore, I'm going to get out of debt, or I'm going to save, or I'm going to invest. A lot of people in the kind of middle class environment have some wiggle room. They have some things that they can cut. You don't have to just be, I'm only paying out debt for the next 5 years before I can then allow myself to invest. I think for most people, that's a huge waste of time. And more often than not, it's going to lead to kind of this behavioral paradox where you have this kind of boom and bust lifestyle where you are trying to get out of debt. It sucks. It's no fun. Budgeting is awful. And then you fall off the wagon. You have a birthday. You have a family, gathering or something like that, and so your budget falls apart overnight. And then you realize, oh, I really enjoy eating out, or I really enjoy doing this other thing, and then you fall off the wagon altogether. So this is where automation changes the game. When you get the right automations in place, you can kind of do multiple things at once. Yes, it will take longer than if you do one thing at a time, but unfortunately, our life isn't really pragmatic to do that for most people. So when you automate things, you can achieve multiple things at the same time. Yes, you can certainly make the argument that it's watering down your productivity compared to just doing one thing at a time, but I think it's more sustainable. And that's what I look for in my approach is behavioral sustainability. What is easy, enjoyable, and it will get me long-term results. So that's how I think through things. So when it comes to these different things, you basically have a variety of options. You can pay down debt, you can save, invest are the kind of the big three. So let's blow this up a little bit. Okay, great. Doing it on the fly. Here we go. Okay, so if you've got $1,000, let's see here. Okay, so now you've got $1,000, and maybe you do have some debt. Maybe you don't have 3 to 6 months as an emergency fund. That's a typical rule of thumb that I might recommend. I think most people across the board are pretty comfortable with, wanting at least 90 days of money sitting in some sort of a savings, high yield savings account, money market account as an emergency fund. So I am certainly of the mindset that the less cash on hand you have, better to a point. I think 90 days to 6 months is a great kind of rule of thumb, depending on your job, your income, all these other factors kind of come into play. But from there, you probably most people don't want to put their entire life on pause for a couple of years potentially to build that emergency fund. So I'm a big advocate of doing multiple things at once, like we're talking about. So depending on the amount of debt you have, depending on the amount of money you would like to have in savings, depending on your investments and your age and all these criteria, I think for a lot of people it makes sense to split these maybe even equally. So maybe even taking a third of $1,000 a month and paying off debt. Maybe take a third to build your savings and a third to invest. If you have a 401k at work as an option and you're getting a match, that's a great use of time and money because you're basically going to be forfeiting that match if you do nothing. If you don't opt in, the money goes away. You can't recoup those dollars. So if you can at least get the match That doesn't mean you have to continue to contribute out above and beyond that. You could certainly do other investing outside of your 401k, such as in a Roth IRA. That's a great way to go. That way, you're diversifying your tax benefits if you don't have a Roth 401k as an option. So what does that even mean? So from beginning with the end in mind, most people can benefit from having traditional Roth and taxable dollars in these different buckets over time when they get into retirement. So you might be in your 20s, 30s, or 40s and feel like, well, that's still a long time away. Absolutely right. However, we want to begin with the end in mind because some of those buckets are certainly harder to fill depending on what our age is. So the Roth bucket, there's a lot of limitations to that. As far as the Roth IRA goes, in the year 2023, you can only contribute $6,500 per year in a Roth IRA. If you're married, and even if your spouse is not working, the spouse can also open a Roth IRA and contribute $6,500. So that's maximum $13,000, assuming that you and your family are able to do that. Number one. But then there are these traditional dollars. So for most people that have a 401k, if you're putting money in the 401k, it's likely, if you don't know off the top of your head, you're probably putting it in the traditional side of the fence, which means you're going to be getting the tax break today, and then the money is going to grow and grow and grow. And then when you pull it out in retirement, you're going to get taxed on those dollars. So it's important to have, Roth dollars, traditional dollars, as well as taxable dollars, which is just in a normal investment account with no special tax treatment. That way, when you are in retirement, depending on what the tax environment is in retirement, because no one has a crystal ball, we don't know what it will be, that gives you more options on how to pull the money out. So, now that we're done with that part of it, I would say for most people, just splitting things up equally is a great way to go. Again, you can automate this thing, right? You can automate Netflix when you pay your bill. You can certainly automate paying off your credit card. You can automate the minimum payment. You can automate additional payments to your credit card. So figure out what you can do comfortably and do that. And then make sure that there's money to go into savings, because if you don't have any savings, guess what? You're going to be right back in credit card debt in no time. So you want to make sure you have savings, but you don't want that savings to be at the same bank where you do all of your other banking, because that invisible barrier between checking and savings is an easy way to wipe out everything that you've saved up. All it takes is one incident or one, hey, I just got a last minute invitation to an event, and now I'm going to be pulling from savings, and I'm going to create this bad habit of just pulling from savings whenever I get the desire to do something. So having your savings outside of your normal banking system is a great idea to actually accumulate savings. Again, I say this all the time, 69% of Americans have less than $1,000 saved. I think the checking and savings at the same bank is a massive reason why that is the case, because every time you walk into the bank, you open up a checking account. What do they want to do? They want to sign you up right away for a savings account. By the way, it's going to pay nothing in interest, like 0.01 for most of these banks. Also, don't be fooled that a high yield savings account is not really doing you any favors either, because even the high yield savings accounts are, guess what? Less than inflation in terms of the rate of return that you're going to get from that. So by putting money in a high yield savings account, don't pat yourself on the back too quick. You want a minimum amount of liquid savings. Everything else should be invested. So if you don't know what to invest in, absolutely keep this channel, subscribe below, and keep following along, because I'm going to be unpacking a lot of that in the coming weeks and months and years as far as this channel goes. So again, just don't fall prey to this idea that if you're in debt, that means that your only option is to stay in debt until you pay everything off, or don't ever go inside a restaurant and feel guilty because you've got debt. That's unfortunately very narrow thinking for most people in today's society. So I would say, just to wrap, split these up, $1,000 from debt to savings and investments. You can absolutely make a lot of headway. Put it on autopilot and then go live your life. Thanks for watching.